Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. It's my privilege this morning to do a review of an excellent book from Edward Elgar. It's called EU Environmental Law and it's been written by Geert van Calster and Leonie Reins. The book's an e-book and as well as a printed book and available electronically at Elgaronline. Elizabeth and I talked about the book and we've given it for our review title the following: an important legal research tool from Edward Elgar Publishing on European Union environmental law at a time of great change on the continent. And that's what we've got. Let's have a look at the book. Very nice front cover. I like the picture at the front there. It's a hardback. There's the spine and then there's the back. It's part of the Elgar European Law series. The book at the back, it runs to something approaching 300 odd pages. The index at the back has page numbering. It's not a big index, by the way, it's quite a short index really. Then you get to the actual detail. There are lots of footnotes, of course, as to be expected. You've got numbering, subhead numbering. You don't actually have as such, as far as I can see, paragraph numbering in any way, but you should be able to find things reasonably easily. There's a lot of detail, of course, in the book. There's the front cover there. Then we get into the main bit there. That's the list of Elgar European Law publications so far. Then after that, you've got some interesting detail about the online site and a rather interesting visual, which I will say no more about. But the lady is blindfolded, I would point out. And it doesn't look to me as though the scales are balanced. And I will say no more. Now, we've also got a nice little dedication. I always like to point that out. Then we have the contents section there. You can see how it's structured. It's broken up into parts, and there are a lot of chapters in the individual parts. The total number of chapters, there are let's have a look. There are 17 chapters in total. Then there's some figures and tables. Then, of course, you've got a short preface from the authors. Then you've also got tables of cases and national and international cases as well as common law ones. Table of legislation, the directives, as to be expected, and so forth. And then after that we get setting the context, history and development, because things are changing. Even as this book was written, things are changing. The book is dated, it's actually published in 2017. The copyright date is given as 2017 there. Obviously that's 6 months after the decision to leave the European Union by the United Kingdom. But this is going to take a long time, and a lot of the books currently that we're reviewing are looking at areas which are going to take a while to see any meaningful change occur. But that's the way it's going to be with the effect of leaving the European Union. Now, what do we say about the book? Well, if you're an environmental lawyer, or indeed any kind of lawyer, you'll need no reminder of the importance of the European Union and environmental law on what we do and where we live, even in the face of the UK's imminent departure from the EU, now that Article 50 has been triggered and the Great Repeal Act will soon be on the statute book. The environment, after all, knows no boundaries. One of the latest publications from Elgar, it's in the Elgar's European Law series. This book, say the co-authors, can be used both as a handbook and as a general introduction to European environmental regulation, which they add is becoming more complex and interrelated, making it an emerging field of study for European law graduates. Now, the authors are Geert van Calster and Leonie Reins, and they're from KU Leuven in Belgium. And Professor van Calster is also at King's College London and Monash University in Australia. And as EU environmental law grows increasingly complex, as it will do, and persistently confusing, the editors have fortunately provided a cogent yet detailed and analytical examination of it, which I think will be a benefit to everyone. There is certainly a formidable amount of research and analysis on a variety of environmental issues in this one compact volume. Part 1 of the book surveys the framework of European environmental law and the principles that govern it, with the first chapter featuring a brief yet illuminating survey of its history. Interestingly, it's pointed out that in the 1950s, at the founding stage of the European Union, that is when the European Coal and Steel Community was created, then the latter when the 1957 Treaty of Rome established the European Economic Community, and we're celebrating, of course, 60 years of that, there were no policies or legal provisions directly related to the environment at that time. Probably some would say more's the pity, but there we are. That was the beginning of all of this after the Second World War. And by, of course, the 1970s, when Britain entered the common market, the environment has emerged as an issue of international importance, and it's continued to do so to this day. And of special interest to lawyers as well as environmentalists will be part 2 of the book, on substantive legislation, which covers a range of areas from biodiversity and nature conservation through to legislation on water pollution and protection, noise, air pollution as well, of course, climate change, waste and chemicals, and approaches relating to trade, which of course is an area of substantial change with the triggering of Article 50 and where we're going in the next 2 years and probably up to 10 years with the changes. Now let me conclude by saying all of this is included in the book, plus of course tables of cases and of legislation, including directives and regulations. And it makes the book, we think, an important work of reference, not only for practitioners and scholars, but for anyone interested in a thoroughly contemporary study of environmental issues. And as I said, the publication date is 2017. It's an important book because it will be with us for a long time. This subject isn't going to go away just because we've decided to leave. There's the information at the back. Just opening the book up, it's detailed. There's a lot of case law. You can see there's footnoting there. There's a lot of information. This is looking at state aid and competition law. Again, very controversial areas again at the moment. And looking at the powers of the European Court. Again, you've got a whole series of environmental and strategic impact assessments given there. And if we go just to the front again, let me just remind you of the contents. It sets the scene right at the beginning, and then it gives you the framework in part 1, then the substantive legislation in part 2. And as I say, there's a lot of information about the case law which you can see in the actual headings for the chapters. I'd like to thank Geert van Calster and Leonie Reins very much indeed for providing this information in this book, because I think it does help us understand where we're going at the moment, notwithstanding that we are going to be in for a very substantial upheaval. Thank you very much to all concerned, and a special thank you to Elgar. You make our lives a lot easier by producing these books, and we're very thankful to you for continuing to do so. Thank you. Bye-bye.